I'm Etzion from Haifa, Israel. Today is the 8th of February 2025. As usually, traditionally, we start with a musical piece. It will be a continuation of what we heard last week. Last week, I participated with a musical band from my former town, Meherabad, which is about 10 kilometers westward of Jerusalem, between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. If you look at the tiny map of Israel, you can figure it out more or less. And we went to play in one of the best musical halls in Jerusalem, the YMCA, which has some of the best acoustics in Jerusalem or in Israel. We're going to share it. Okay, I'm back here. Sorry. This was a musical piece from 8 years ago. If you would notice on the right side, the bassoon, it was one of the first times I started to join the orchestra with the bassoon. Till then I was practicing the flute. I still play the flute. I practiced musical instruments over the years, the flute, piano, and the bassoon. But I'm a musical student. I'm not a professional. I never made a living from this. I'm studying music, to say. Anyway, again, we keep on sharing musical piece. It is a reminder, a very faint reminder of the spiritual circle. And one of you dear ones approached me this week. We were communicating over the WhatsApp, and we keep on speaking about the spiritual circles and bringing this the musical pieces, the reminder. Why don't you go ahead and create it? Create a musical spiritual circle. It's very, we cannot do this any longer. We don't understand what it takes. All our goodwill combined is not going to do this. Why? It can't be done only on the directive of the Godhead under the guidance of the avatar and the supreme beings. And the last opportunity was just more than 3,000 years ago, during the advent of Moses, with the children of Israel had to prepare the grand spiritual circle, which of Abraham's avatar laid the foundations of. The Jewish people, or which were called at that time the Hebrews or the children of Israel. Israel was the grandson of Abraham. His name was Jacob. When he became realized, his name was changed to Israel. Israel meaning the God-man, literally. So the word Israel is when we say the state of Israel, the state of the God-man. This is a name the forefathers of this country gave this name. They, of course, most likely didn't know which name they chose, but most likely there was some divine influence because we took it, the people took it for granted. Our forefather is Israel, and we are his descendants. So this is the land of Israel. The spiritual meanings, the people who started Israel, most of the Zionists at that time, left, stood away from the religion from Judaism. In Judaism, it is being spoken and explained the state of Israel, why Jacob became Israel. We spoke about this before. We are going to speak about this later on during discussions on Genesis. But last night I was meditating about this principle of the spiritual circles. The formation of man, the formation, if we go back to the first chapter in the book of Genesis, then we can see that in the beginning we see the Godhead or the deity, or whatever it is Elohim. Elohim is plural. And the sixth day, a new being appears, Yahweh Elohim, some mysterious being. And this mysterious being, Yahweh Elohim, I explained at that time that the Elohim is who we are, and we we became as if we got separated from the infinitude as individuals, and Yahweh Elohim is solution or the achievement of the sojourn of the souls from individuality back to oneness. Because Yahweh is plural, is singular, sorry. Elohim is plural, Yahweh is singular, Elohim is who we are, we became one again. That's the way I envision this expression, which in Judaism is very sacred. We are not supposed to say for whatever reason, because we are not holy, and you're supposed to say it only the Holy Temple of Jerusalem by the high priest during Yom Kippur or something like this. I'm not going to enter into it. And last night I was meditating over this issue of the spiritual circles and Yahweh. And what crossed my mind, you remember from Revelations, the figure of 144,000, which is, if we make 12 times 12, we get to 144. And these are 12 spiritual circles. And then what crossed my mind is that if we add the numbers in some kind of a geometric sequence or mathematical sequence, and let's say we multiply it each time, but by whatever factor. I'm not a mathematician, not much of it. And I was trying to do something about this. It's something very vague. It's something here. It's just a coarse draft sketch. I figured out that these numbers, if you write them correctly, is the formation of a pyramid, that we have the first circle of 12 individuals on the top, the capstone of the pyramid. Then I got the idea of making a search, 144,000 and pyramid in the internet. And I'm going to show you what I found. This is an article, 144,000 casing stones of the Great Pyramid of Giza. I'm not going to get into this, but you can see it here. You can make a search, and there are quite a few articles concerning the Great Pyramid, and this figure 144,000. And you can read it in the book of Revelation. And he took a few measurements concerning the pyramids. You can look at it there. I don't want to get into it, but he came to the number of almost 144,000. So this number, 144,000, exists in the formation of the pyramids. There are many mathematical secrets, geometric and cosmic cosmic riddles encapsulated in the Great Pyramid. And researchers and mathematicians and many people are studying the Great Pyramid, trying to unravel its secrets and mysteries, the way it was built. It is the location on Earth, it's directed to the North Pole, that it's directed to the Pleiades, the Star of Orion, etc. There are too many factors that it was just accidental or haphazard. It's not possible. And the way the people build it, it is beyond us. We don't know how to do it these days. Science and engineering, nobody can construct such a pyramid. We don't know how to do it. There are many theories, but we don't know. But what I see this what came to me is that this phenomenon, Yahweh Elohim, is actually a symbol of the spiritual circles, the pyramid of the spiritual circles, and we can see it in Baba's his own depiction of which Ranogeli made. Baba sitting on top of this hierarchy, and we have these spiritual circles emanating or forming. I can bring the picture, it's hanging in just a minute. We all know this, a picture of Baba sitting on top of this kind of tower or pyramid. It's in Baba's museum in Lower Meherabad. Thank you. So as I envisioned, understood it last night, and the way I've writing all these books of Genesis and other articles and stories, so the first time I had all kinds of insights and revelations from His Lordness, because He is my focus, and from time to time, I would see insights. So this being, which appears in the sixth day, it's actually the manifestation of the spiritual circles, which they form a pyramid. I will keep on trying to work on it and see what will come up, hopefully till next time. If I can make a design, I think I can, it's quite obvious that at the bottom, altogether, there I think 12,000 spiritual circles altogether, if I'm not wrong. It's 120 times 1,200, and we have 144,000. Yes, many mystics try to figure it out what is being concealed with this secret in the book of Revelation by John, the disciple, the beloved disciple of Yahushua, whom we call Jesus for whatever reason. He presumably was supposed to be the only true heir of Yahushua, and according to the legends or the Gospels, while Jesus was nailed to the cross, all the disciples ran away. Only his mother and Mary, if I'm not Mary, Magdalene, and John the Beloved came to the cross. And Jesus said, on the cross, he's telling John, or telling his mother, this is your son, look at me. So John was supposed to be, Yohanan was to be the spiritual heir, but then came Peter and Paul and pushed him aside. They grabbed the cake for themselves. Eventually, all the disciples also had to undergo crucifixion. The worst was the thing with Paul, who was crucified upside down, excluding John, who was deported to some isolated island in the Mediterranean, where he lived a very long life, I think till almost 100, and they wrote the book of Revelation. How true all these things, we don't know. We don't have the historians, we didn't have newspapers, we didn't have CNN, didn't have any real records. These are usually rumors, hearsay, memories, which were written many years after that, of how, but what it is, that the great masters of wisdom, like our Meir Baba, acknowledged that most of these things are true, even greatly misunderstood. etc. Okay, we have time. We'll resume our reading of the book of Genesis. We are studying the life of Lord Abraham, the avatar. He looks like an ordinary family person with all these troubles and tribulations and all these conflicts, family conflicts. We'll keep on reading it and I'll try to explain what I understand. There is a reason why the book of Genesis, which is so precise and so accurate and condensed, gives so much ample importance to this family of Abraham till Moses. He actually lays the foundation of the greatest attempt ever the past 10,000 years to redeem humanity, which have fallen from the Garden of Eden, broke the pyramid which was laid by the spiritual hierarchy, and which we cannot do, as all the scientists in the world cannot concoct one cell, cannot check the material and create one living cell. Not to say that this body that each one of us is carrying, according to science, contains 50 trillion cells. Each one is an individual, all these 50 trillion working together with perfect harmony. If they will not, this body, or whatever you call it, will collapse, will get sick and collapse, will disappear, fall apart. So just the same as this, the spiritual pyramid, which we give it the name Yahweh Elohim, was constructed by the divine infinite intelligence. With infinite intelligence, you can create a cell, perfect cell right away. A cell cannot, it's not possible that will be formed gradually by process of evolution. You must build the whole components at once, right away. And you cannot put 50 trillion cells together in 9 months of pregnancy. Then after 9 months, you get out a human being, a creature, or whatever it is, or animal, or which is totally perfect within a few months. It's not possible for any clever mother to weave 50 trillion cells or as many cells together within a few months. They have no idea actually what's going on behind the veil. And this is a creation of man. The God had said, let us create man. And they created man. As soon as they say, lo and behold, there will appear the whole person, the humanity at once, just like this. Without the gradual process, it's not working like this, it's science things, but it doesn't matter. We're not going into it too much. Go back to the book, share the book, read it a little bit. Then if you have time, I wanted to share with you a few Baba stories, time permitting. Last session we came to this. It's chapter 16 of the book of Genesis. We're getting into the very details of the life of Abraham and his family. Now Sarai, Abraham's wife, bore him no children. She was barren. She is now already 70 or 80 years old. And she had a handmaid, an Egyptian whose name was Hagar. And Sarai, her name was changed later on to Sarah, and Abraham to Abraham. The H was added, and it will be explained later on. It's a very deep meaning in Jewish mysticism, but we are not getting involved with Jewish mysticism. we are talking about the attempt to heal humanity. And here is Lord Abraham lays a foundation for the healing of humanity. And it's very personal, and that's why it is so detailed. And Sarah said unto Abraham, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. Go in, I pray thee, unto my handmaid. It may be that I shall be builded up through her. It was a very common thing in those days. Because how could it be? You're married to your darling husband. Abraham was, of course, an exceptional human being, with all respects, and Sarah was an exceptional human being, both of them very good looking, and etc. Whatever, all the attributes you could offer to both of them. And she had no problem giving a maid to him because the son of the maid would belong to her as her own child. These were the law of the land those days. Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarai, and Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian, her handmaid, after Abraham had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to Abraham, her husband, to be his wife. These days, unbelievable. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said unto Abraham, My wrong be upon thee. I gave my handmaid into thy bosom. And she saw that she had conceived. I was despised in her eyes. Women start to fight. Who is the real one? Family dispute. See how the Torah gets down to all these details, these low details of all these little issues. And later on, we will learn why is this. And Torah is not saying when God created, he said, let us create blue sky and green herbs and brown land, etc. It's very concise. So why is it bring all these detailed stories? There is a reason. The Lord judge between me and thee. But Abraham said unto Sarai, Behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her that which is good in thine eyes. And Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her face. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness. She ran, they lived in southern part of Israel, I believe, and she ran to the desert of what we call the Negev, or maybe she ran to Arabia, which is not far from there. By the fountain in the way to Shur, and he said, Shur is some land in the east. I'm not sure about this, where is it? Doesn't matter. Then he said, Hagar, Sarai's handmaid, whence comest thou, and whither goest thou? This the angel of the Lord is watching you. And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will greatly multiply thy seed, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. The angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and thou shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. In Hebrew, Ishma is to listen, and El is God. Like in the beginning, Elohim, and El is singular. Listen to God. Ishma, El, listen to God. That's why we have the Ishmael and Israel. Ishmael has to listen to Israel, to the manifestation of God on earth. We'll deal with this later on. Because the Lord heard thy affliction, and he shall be a wild ass of a man. Thy son will be, let's say, I call it free spirit. Would be hunter, would chase. That's what came from him. He became some kind of a free spirit. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the face of all his brethren. And she called the name of the Lord that spoke unto her, Thou art a God of seeing. For she said, Have I even here seen him that sees me? Therefore, the well was called Be'er La Roi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. It's in the desert, says, southern desert of Israel, from Beersheba southward, etc. Call it the Negev, in the Arabic, Janub, whatever. And Agar bo Abraham's son, and Abraham called the name of his son, whom Agar bo Ishmael. But the Lord already called him Ishmael, and Abraham was part of, just a minute, people discovering text. Abraham gave birth to two sons, Ishmael from Agar, and then Isaac from Sarah. Cain and Hevel reappear again together. He spoke about the two states of Cain and Hevel, which is Genesis chapter 4, after we expelled ourselves from the Garden of Eden. Adam and his wife Eve or Chava started to breed, make children. They have Cain and Hevel. And actually, this is a symbol of the two aspects in our minds or souls. We have these two, I would call it, two aspects of the spiritual man. His focus is upward to divinity, and the physical man, which is the focus, the successes of the earth. And there is constant battle between each one of us, who is the leader of us internally. And this battle brought about the collapse of humanity, as we learned that Cain murdered Hevel. So actually what happens that we chose the physical realm as our aim, and we cut ourselves from the spiritual focus represented by Hevel or Abel, and thus we sank into matter, and actually we became talking beasts. This is, by the way, Baba's expression. He calls us talking animals. That was due to our free will to choose which way to go, which way to travel in the creation. This is left to us. And the Godhead is not interfering, but silently behind the veil, there is work to redeem humanity, and this was the mission of Abraham, to reestablish the mechanism so which the spiritual circles would be able to be constructed again on earth through humanity, in order to direct the movement of the souls who enter reincarnation or entering the creation. And spoke about this not once. I gave the simile of the cosmic engine. You could see it, showed it last time. We are being forced as if electrons are being forced by the wires into the engine, the electric engine, and everything is flowing smoothly. The engine works nicely and it's rotating properly. And if there is a jam, what's going to be one side electrons or individuals being pushed by force of the creation into the mechanism of the engine. And if we not remove the block, it will burn. And this is what's happening on Earth. They keep on, the world is keep on burning through wars and upheavals and catastrophes. And this is due to the fact that we, humanity, don't allow the smooth movement of the engine of creation. Ishmael represents the earthly man who is subject to the primordial impulses emanating from the depth of the subconscious. Isaac is supposed to establish a spiritual man who controls these impulses. Both of these aspects are essential for human development. We need these two aspects, the aspects of Ishmael and the aspect of Israel. We will keep on dealing with this throughout the book of Genesis and Exodus. It's not a matter of one good person and the other bad. Ishmael is described here as a savage. In a wild sense, it can be seen as a state of life that has not yet entered the process of disciplined practice. The individual undergoing the cosmic evolutionary processes must go through the entire spectrum of experience and take on the material bodies found in creation, including mineral, plant, and animal bodies. Of course, his consciousness is affected by this, and the transition to the human body is a stage at which the individual can begin to discharge the internal residue created during the creation of consciousness in order to achieve the state of consciousness free from the influence of the abyss darkness of the subconscious mind, which is very well portrayed in the first couple of sentences in the book of Genesis. And we can understand only through these slides that this is a process, it's a problem of accumulating sanskars into our subconscious mind. This darkness of the deep. In order to achieve freedom from the imposition of inner residues, one must enter a long process of building discipline for inner practice, and it is Abel's duty, should be Hevel. Thanks to you, keep on finding little mistakes here and there in the text, and keep on trying to work every day to translate the Hebrew text into English. It's quite a very serious undertaking. Hopefully, I don't know if my level of English is sufficient for this, but I've been doing my best to make things clear. And one day, hopefully, it will go to some professional hands and get into a book, because all the translations of the Bible are wrong. We learned it in the very beginning. In the beginning, God created. It's not what's said in Hebrew, which is Bereshith, Bara, which portrayed to me while I was in Meherabad. Baba gave me the vision that this is actually the spiritual Big Bang, that the oneness was shouted to many at the time and exploded in the formation sound of the very first word in Hebrew, and all the translations are wrong. You know, that it's not possible to translate. You have to experience it. For this, you have to be born to the Jewish or Hebrew nation, and hopefully one day you will get the opportunity of reading this book. Actually, all of us had to read the book of Genesis in school from the age of 6 and 7, and sometimes before that. In the religious schools, you start reading the Torah from the age of 3 or 4. And this is a very rare opportunity, and a very few, because there is a very, very long queue to get a Jewish incarnation, but there are very few seats to obtain. Everybody has to undergo this process, and this is a main justification, as far as I'm concerned, for the establishment of the state of Israel, because this everybody speaks Hebrew, and because they speak Hebrew, they can read the book of this rare book of Genesis, which Moses wrote together with Avatar, and this is the very first version of the divine theme, or God speaks. And this is the very reason why our good neighbors reject the Christians in this country, because it creates very serious problem concerning the truthfulness of Islam. But they don't understand about Islam, they don't understand it. Both sides don't understand much about anything. It doesn't matter. We have to be patient and compassionate. They derive from the same root, more or less. And of course, we have to know that I'm not involved in political issues, and will not get involved in this, and just bring the circumstance which was set 3,000 years ago. The problem between Hagar and Sarai is well portrayed when you go to Hijrah to Mecca to perform the Hajj. The Hajj, any Muslim has to go there, and they have all these story that Hagar, the wife of Ishmael, the father of the Arabs, had to run away, and she was kicked out eventually by Abraham himself, etc. And the angel saved her, and all these stories. And most like this lays the foundation of the hostilities, unfortunately, between these two nations. And we learn later on that the Lord was trying again and again to resolve these conflicts, but he cannot force it on us. According to various spiritual masters, we all go through very long processes of developing states of consciousness, which are being expressed in the bodies we wear in each chapter of life on earth. If we look at the embryo, it undergoes all kinds of processes reminiscent of a transition between all kinds of ancient pre-human life forms. The fetus has a tail and looks like a fish, and slowly takes on human form, passing briefly through the animal figures. So while this symbolizes the primordial state in which man enters, a state in which he begins to take responsibility and practice building mental systems in order to achieve freedom from the imposition of inner residues, one must enter a long process of building discipline for inner practice, and it is Heaven's duty to guide Cain. Okay, still have some time. Let's see if we want to keep on. I bought many chapters on the book. The idea was you don't need to keep two books, but you can read the text one after another. I was copying the text from the Bible. Well, this version, this is not the King James version, it's a version created by Jewish rabbis, I believe, with more, of course, closeness to the Hebrew text. But still, as I say, it's not possible to translate the Hebrew text into any other language. You have to leave it. But they've been doing the best efforts. So at least we granted this some kind of record. Still, this record, even its own translation, is very large impact on the minds of humanity in the form of Christianity and Islam. Both are based on this text. The man Abraham was 90 years old and 9. He was almost 100. The Lord appeared to Abraham and said unto him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be thou wholehearted. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abraham fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for thee, behold, thy covenant is with thee. Thou shalt be the father of a multitude of nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but the name shall be Abraham. For the father of multitude of nations have I made thee. For this you have to understand it in Hebrew. I added the H or He in Hebrew. And we are not going to get into it because this is not a mystical treatise. I find all the way across from any mysticism. For this we have the Kabbalah, the book of the Zohar, we have Jewish mysticism, they speak about all kinds of things there. And recently, the past, let's say, a year or more, I keep on listening to YouTube talks about, from our founder, a few very good rabbis who are experts in this. It takes it to understand it, many decades of very intense learning. You have to study Aramaic, you have to be a strictly Jewish observant, you have to keep all the precepts. It's a very big deal. You cannot just take a book and just read it. As we are learning here, you cannot take the book of Genesis, even if you read Hebrew and just read it externally. And God said unto Abraham. In this chapter, he gave the commandment to Abraham to exercise the circumcision for all males, including the Arabs. Also, Arabs are circumcised. The Jews circumcise their males when they are 80 days old. And the Arabs, because Ishmael was circumcised when he was 13, they circumcise the children when they are 13. And God said unto Abraham, As for Sarah thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be, and I will bless her. And moreover, I will give thee a son of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples shall be of her. Then Abraham fell upon his face, and laughed, and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old, and shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? And Abraham said unto God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Nay, but Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name Isaac or Yitzchak. This is it. Because Abraham and Sarah were laughing. And Yitzchak from laughter in Hebrew. Tzahak. Yitzchak, tzahak, tzchok. This is laughter. It's not Isaac. That's the name it is translated. So you see, it's very important to understand Hebrew because most of these sentences have very little to do with the original. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, for his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee, behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall be beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. What an amazing. Abraham is 100, his wife is 90, and God comes and tells the next year they're going to have a son. Interestingly, Ishmael had 12 sons, parallel to the 12 sons Jacob had, or the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob's name was turned into Israel. We'll study it later on, the important significance of these changed names. We see that both sides are laying the foundation for the restoration of the human race. The basis for the restoration of the human race is the establishment of the spiritual circles that were broken with the first sin, in which man expelled himself from the consciousness of heaven and brought upon himself the phenomenon of death, which is in fact the dissolution of the spiritual circles. There are 12 main mental structures in the human race, and combining them into one unity through a circle of such people creates a level of group consciousness beyond the reach of an individual. Cain and heaven must be in balance to ensure a more or less normal life on earth. When the people of Cain outnumber the people of Abel, corrected, when the people of Cain outnumber the people of heaven significantly, the world is filled with suffering, wars, and in fact is heading in the direction of self-extinction. So both Cain and Hevel are necessary. We are not supposed to eliminate, choose goodness instead of evil. Supposedly, it's also one is good and one is evil. That good and evil are situations where things are not working properly. There's nothing wrong with Cain. He is not an evil person. He is an aspect which must to be controlled by the spiritual man, and everything is just fine. That's who it is. And Ishmael's Arabs and this current conflict, they are not good guys and bad guys. And who is the right? They have to learn that they are one body, one family. But over this past 3,000 years of constant destruction, creating such state of animosity, and there is no spiritual understanding whatsoever on both sides, or very little, or at least very, very few speak what is the truth. So we have this acute suffering. And all this acute suffering was due to the fact that we, the spiritual people, refuse to reconstruct the spiritual circles, and it was possible only during times of the advent of Moses. And after that, only the masters can have a spiritual circle of a few individuals, as Meherabad said, and we cannot do it by ourselves. This situation. Somebody will ask me, if you speak about the spiritual circles, why don't you go ahead and do it? I cannot say, let there be a man, all of a sudden a human being will stand on his feet, will start to walk. I cannot do this. You need the whole spiritual hierarchy and the whole system to work together, and the spiritual heart. He sent Abraham down to establish the basis for the reconstruction, rehabilitation of humanity. And this came to the focus, came to its culmination during the advent of Moses. We are going to study it later on. We'll get to the book of Exodus. It's the main book of Exodus, all these kind of stories about the Jews in Egypt and Exodus and the 12 commandments. Meherabad said to his disciples to go and watch the movie, The 12 Commandments by Cecil D. Benil. Those days when he came to the screens and he said that the script is true. And when Baba amended this, he amended the book of Moses, he amended the Moses was a true master, etc., etc. There's no question about this, of course. We know, because people say, who knows if all these stories are true or not? These are just legends. And there are great scholars debating over this, even a Jewish scholar, what is true, not true. The religious people take it per se, that we have this great book and we believe in any word or letter in the shape of the letter. It's divine revelation. And what we learn here, that is quite true. This is at least my impression from delving over this book for the past 20 years and more, as I explained before. Now, I wanted as an aperitif tell you Baba's story. Something personal it's going to be. Baba said that the family of Baba lovers are being benefited when one of them is coming coming closer to the avatar or the perfect masters. So I want to tell the story how my mother passed away. It was 2001 or so. At that time, she was more than 90. She was very ill for many years. She and my father came to land of Israel. At that time, it was 1934, British mandate. They called it Palestine, Eretz Israel. The British, we didn't really know what's really going on behind this. They managed to conquer the land from the Ottoman Empire, which is Turkey. Today, the Ottoman Empire wants to be reconstructed under President Erdogan. He wants to be the next Khalif and rule the Middle East again. That's why he took over Syria, etc. We are not going to get into it. But this is what happened. And since then, 1917, this place is being called the Arabs. It's actually from the 60s, the 20th century. They called it Palestine, which actually the Romans. This a long story. It's not our business to get involved into this. It doesn't matter. Anyway, they came here to this very harsh country and they suffered a very great deal to build from scratch country by the Ottomans or the Turks. They didn't invest much in the land of the promised land, let's call it. For both sides will be happy. Both sides agree this is the promised land. And it was a very neglected place. Even the Arabs said there were cities they cultivated. It was there were no hospitals by the end of the 19th century. The first hospital was created by Christians in the city of Tiberia, next to the Lake of the Galilee. and a hospital in Jerusalem. There were just basic things. They would bandage your wounds. They would hardly be able to perform any surgeries. It was just a very, very rudimentary place to give you some comfort, solace. If you will be able to heal a little bit, maybe. Because those days people would die from a rotten tooth, appendicitis, um, even small things, even something casual like prostate. You wouldn't be able to urinate and you would explode and die. There was no way to help the person. Anyway, my folks came here, worked very hard. Their lives was extremely excruciating and difficult. There were no support, there were no governments. The British were concerned about their interests, the global interests. They were the biggest empire on earth those days in the 30s and the 40s, before World War II. And in spite of what the Arabs said, they didn't have any concern whatsoever about not Jews and not Arabs, but the concerns of the interests of the great empire. And that's all. They didn't come here to make justice for the world. They could have done this. They could have divided the land and tell the Arabs, you go here, the Jews, you go there, and make a barrier into these rival factions. But they didn't do it. They let everything just to be mixed up. But I don't blame anyone. That's what happened. It doesn't matter. And when my mother reached old age, my father passed away in 1983, shortly after return from Meherabad. I was in Meherabad 82, 83. A few months later, actually, Baba brought all of my life. He shattered everything to smithereens. Took me a whole year to get out of this and rebuild my humble life again. Instead of being a devoted Baba lover, supposedly, I had to undergo lots of excruciating periods in this lifespan. If you see me casual and comfortable, sort of, and today I'm most of the time looks more cheerful, then you will learn to accept all these hardships with smiling faces, this is the art of living. You have to learn to be burnt inside, and nobody should know anything about it. And of course, I'm one with the suffering and the wars in this country. I'm inside all this. But you will not see me, hopefully, being affected by this mentally or spiritually, because it doesn't help the situation. Anyway, my wife says so. My mother actually, I was living in Jerusalem. I was coming a few times a week from Jerusalem to look after her. As per the testimony of my father, who was worried before he passed away, what's going to be with his mother. And she passed away in 2001, he's 83. So I took care personally of my mother for 20 years. I was living in Jerusalem. She lived in a city north of Tel Aviv. It's like an hour and a half drive between two cities. We call it Ra'anana, refreshed. Ra'anan is to be refreshed. That's the name of the place. There I was born and grew up. I was 18, I went to the army. After the army, I went to live in Jerusalem. I had this Jerusalem syndrome. Type Jerusalem syndrome in the Google search and find out what is some kind of mental sickness. And then I understood I was telling Baba that's enough is enough. There's so much suffering, end it. And I was there in the house. And in the morning, the maid, we had a Filipina lady who was taking care of my mom. And she called me, mother passed away at night, and she's in the hospital. And as I was driving to the hospital from Jerusalem, I said, Baba, thank you very much, because I felt that that's it, she passed away. And for all this excruciating suffering. They're coming to the hospital, and my mother was sitting there on the bed. And she was clear and conscious, alert and sharp till the end. And almost questions Baba's why. Why couldn't let her go away? Why is it? You know, 3 weeks later, I'm getting a phone call. And then, of course, after a few days, my mother went back to her home. We never put her in a home. I disagreed. But she will go to her home, and she lived in the house she lived all her life. And myself and the Filipina took care of her. So I wouldn't like anyone to go to her home. You stay at your home. In the old good days, we didn't have any homes, and we took care of all the elderly, as they were the gods of the house. Nobody would give a thought that the elderly people should be cast out and put them away, so it won't be disturb us. It would be our life mission to look after the people who brought us, gave us this opportunity to be born. And that was my attitude, of course. 3 weeks later, I'm getting a phone call from the Agriculture Institute or University of Rehovot. Rehovot is a city south of Tel Aviv. It is one of the most important leading schools of agriculture in the world. As you well know, the Israelis invented the drip irrigation, and the agriculture of Israel is one of the best and leading worldwide, and we give helping many countries in the world developing the agriculture. Actually, in this country, we develop, we grow everything which can be grown on the planet. Due to the diversity, extreme diversity of this small country in the south is hot, the north is cold. Within a few hours of drive, you go from one state of climate to another, very sharp, it's very variegated country. So they said we have, for this institute, they said that there is somebody who wants to talk to you. And I started to speak with the person. He speaks to me with obvious Indian accent from India. He introduced himself as Dr. Prafula Kale from India, a Baba lover. He came to Israel to study, to progress his education. He was presumably already a doctor in the science of agriculture. And the people from there and all over the world is coming to study advanced studies of agriculture in this institute in Israel. So he said, where are you? Can we meet? I said, I go back and forth from Jerusalem to Rome to look after my mother, and one of these days when I'm traveling, this on the way, more or less, I can come and visit him. So I came to visit him, and then he started to investigate where I am, what I am, from where I'm coming, and what's going on, and this and that, all kinds of questions, and I answered everything politely, of course. Very nice person. As you can imagine, Baba was very nice people. Trying to, just kidding. Anyway, he told me that before he's coming to Israel, while in Meherabad, he got 2 instructions from Baba to take some dust from Meherabad and sprinkle it in Golgotha, where Jesus was crucified, and to bow down to my mother. That's what he told me. That this is what Baba told him in Meherabad. So I told him, you want to bow down? So I took him, of course, to Jerusalem, to Golgotha, and there it is not what Christians say, that it's within the walls of Jerusalem, in the, how they call it? There is a church in the middle of the old city of Jerusalem, and they claim that Jesus was crucified and buried there, but in the old good days, they didn't crucify the people inside the walls of Jerusalem, but outside of the walls, and there was a hill on the northern side, just behind the big wall of Jerusalem. There they used to execute people. And this hill has 2 caves, or 3 caves, and you look at it from afar, it has the shape of a skull. That's why they call it Golgotha. Golgolet, in Hebrew, Jumjuma, in Arabic, very close. This is a skull. It looks like 2 caves for the eyes, and I think there was something for the nose. Well, I can find the picture there. It's behind the bus station, is the Arabic bus station of East Jerusalem. So we went there, and we sprinkled Baba the dust from Meherabad there, and we made some prayers. Maybe he recited one of the prayers, so Baba, whatever it is, and we had some tour of the old city, which is always lovely and nice to go to eat the best hummus in the world, etc., etc. And then after that, we met again in his Harvard faculty, and I took him to my mother's. So we'll bow down to my mother. And here I'm going to share. This is Dr. Pufula Kale in the home of my mother. This is the leg of my mother, and he's bowing down, putting his head on my mother's feet. Here's Dr. Pufula Kale, myself, another friend, my hometown, that I'm Ra'anana. So after he blessed my mother on behalf of Papa, as he said that this is what Baba instructed him, and to visit this person, and Dr. Kare took advantage and bowed down to the mother of this person. So he had the double. And then I learned this is a very common thing in India and in the East, to respect our elders by bowing down to them. I admit my sins that I have never bowed to my parents. With a very harsh upbringing. My parents are survivors of the Holocaust. They managed to escape Eastern Europe in 1934, just on time. From 36 onwards, you couldn't get to Israel anymore. There was an Arabic uprising in Palestine against Jewish immigration to Israel. And at that time, the war broke out in 1948. Nobody took an inch whatsoever or anyone else without buying it officially and responsibly. Definitely you couldn't do it. So whatsoever the Arabs claim, sorry for saying it, but they couldn't do anything. There was this powerful British government with a few army divisions in the Holy Land to protect the country and quell the The Arabs protested under the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood, leading by the Mufti of Jerusalem, the notorious Mufti, who went to join Hitler and ask him to implement the final solution of exterminating the Jews also in Palestine. That's what happened. This incident that Baba Sensamai, to bless my heart, is one of my really touching events. I was really deeply, very, very deeply touched. Because most of my training by Baba has been very strict and very harsh, often experienced his belovedness, but more often experienced his, how you would call it, his tough side. For me, I chose a very tough deal, and this is the best deal. If your darling Baba is all the time a pink, sweet Baba, I don't think you chose the right deal. It's up to you. Then what happened with my father? Father passed away, and admittedly, as I said, we didn't take care of our parents with the respect of the Ten Commandments. We were quite a dysfunctional family, very troubled, constantly. It was just a sheer crude survival. All the time being threatened by our neighbors over just a few kilometers from home. Often you would hear gunshots, talking about the 50s, since I remember myself. And the situation was very harsh. Sometime after that, at the periods I didn't have any work. Usually I do construction, I do have whatsoever I need to do for the... And for a few weeks I didn't have any work, so I looked at the ads, said, why should I sit at home if I can do something for whatever pay? I didn't care about the pay, because I like to move, I like to share, I like to serve and help the community. And then I bumped in ads looking for people to take care of elderly people. So I talked to the office and I came there for interview. I said, you would like to do it? I said, I would like to do everything, whatever there is, whatever is needed. So send me to a home. And in that home, I had to look after an old man, aged person, and I had to take care of him. And he dawned on me after a few days that this person actually has very much similarities to my father. Something to do with the origin, the mentality. At a certain point, I felt that if Baba was granting me the opportunity of taking care of my father, or I don't know how to say it, as if the pattern of my father shall be looking at what I didn't do with my father. On behalf of my father, I'm doing with this person. And I stayed with him. We had the brain damage and he couldn't function actually. And after a few weeks, they put him in a special care unit and they didn't need me anymore. And it was the first and the only time I was doing this kind of work. When I finished this work, I felt that I cleared this obligation with my father. And I felt that when Mom eventually passed, after Dr. Caleb about to my mother, I think 2 or 3 weeks after that, my mother passed away. I saw her last time before I left, I was at home. I looked at her. She was completely aware. I looked at her eyes. She looked at me. She couldn't speak at that time. And it was the last time I saw her. In the morning, I was called that she is lost consciousness back in the hospital, and she didn't wake up. After 10 days, she passed away. thank you, Baba. And I felt greatly that possible Baba took care of these individuals as he does, or whatever it is. Actually, since we have this closeness with our beloved, we should give everything to him. And as he explained to me over the years, when I was trained by him to work on sanskars from 1976, I have to give everything to him because he can take care of situations only if I give it to him due to the nature of my surrenderance to him. He cannot help people who do not surrender to him because thus he would violate their free will, which he cannot do. But since I bring the situation to him, then he can do something, even behind the veil. Can take care of the individuals, places, nations, as I keep on bringing to him the situation non-stop between these so-called Jewish so-called Arabs. That's my duty. This has been my duty. But Baba Arabs don't understand it and think I'm the bad Israelis who are us poor Palestinians. They don't understand that I'm a go-between. And I work to uplift this sanskar and bring it to it. Because both of them, both sides are not connected to the Lord. And not directly, or they're not consciously. Even both sides are pray to God, supposedly. But it's not real prayers. This is just formal prayers of the book. You need the individual's heart, personal connections with the Lord. It's not working just by book. You have to have the real experience. Then he grant me the real experience of who he is. Then I can help all this situation, personally to a certain degree. And a few times he showed me when I was doing something, I was shown the results. And then I understood that this work has some results. I don't see it behind the veil, it's none of my business. But I learned that this is what I have to do, this all of us have to do, bring the impressions, bring this world to his Lordness, then he will be able to take care of it. You would never, I don't think you ever heard me abusing, complaining why these people are behaving like this or that, doesn't do anything. You have to learn to work with sanskars. And if you take sides, if you bash people, you abuse nations and politicians, you get hooked up to their sanskars, you don't do anything good to them, nothing good to you, and definitely nothing good to Baba, because you might lose the benefits of this advent. This is the only real tragedy which you can see in the world. That people came so close to the avatar in this life, in this earthly sphere. They're getting involved with all these world relations and why this politician complaining why this and why and I see it all the time in the Baba world. And all these good people, unfortunately, we lose the benefits of this. So stick only to the beloved and ignore this world. You don't need to advance on the plane, don't do anything. If you only focus on him and forget all this stupid world, you will win this advent. That's my experience. This is what I have to say. But this will end this communication with you this week. Hopefully we'll see you, Baba's willing, next week. Thank you very much.